I just saw it pop up on my end.
So, this is a bit different. Um, so yeah, I decided, no game today. Just, something new.
Chatting about death? Really?
What? It's like close to Halloween. Why not?
Good point.
Also, you like the picture I chose?
Yeah, funny. What's with the beat?
So, context. That is from Discworld 2, Morality Bites. Mortality Bites, sorry. I can
Well, I guess you
speak.
could say it bites the dirt so badly.
Mm. So, as the title implies, we're talking about the various versions of death in media and how they differ from like various media to media, like books, TV, video games, obviously.
Ah, so that's why you need a night storm.
Yes.
Let me go get him.
Okay.
Night storm, you're up. Sorry, what's up? What? What's going on?
Sounds more like Beetlejuice, honestly.
Oh, death. Oh, my belly. Really. Night storm, you and death gives me a headache. Sorry. No rad. Anyways, sorry about that. What are we talking about?
I think there's no one in chat right now, but if there was, they'd probably agree that Nightstorm sounds a lot like Beetlejuice from the 1988
God
movie.
damn it.
Huh?
God damn it. Wait, don't ever say his name. Remember what happens?
Yeah, I know what happens. I've seen the movie multiple times.
Yeah, except what problem? He hangs around this castle too much.
Does he?
Yeah, I've been trying
Anyways,
to get rid of him.
good luck with that.
Thanks.
You're gonna need a very powerful exorcist for that. So, yeah, no game today. Just chatting about the various personifications of death.
Ah, there is a lot of those.
Mm. And, I know with what's been going on in the world right now, people are probably gonna be like, "Oh, why are you talking about that? There's another that in the real world." I know, and I am
Oh,
very thankful for our essential workers, and really despising the people who could have stopped this but didn't. I refuse to give them names because they don't deserve to be named.
nameless. Pretty much, they're just faceless.
Yes.
Nice time stop playing Bless Unleashed. Sorry, it's a good game.
Also, sorry for like a little bit. I am currently getting my desktop audio from Discord. So occasionally I'll get a notification. It'll come up. There's nothing I can do about that because if I mute Discord, you can't hear Nightstorm. Anyways, so most of the time when you're thinking about like death in media, it's like the first thing that probably comes to your head is like horror movies.
Or the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, exactly. But most of the time when people are talking about like death in media, it's like, "Oh, did you see this horror movie? Oh my gosh, it was so spooky." And it's true, like the human mind is hardwired to have a fear of death. It's been that way for hundreds of thousands of years. It's always been part of our
Actually,
survival.
if you go farther back into the medieval time, maybe about a billion years ago.
Right. So I find it interesting that during like the medieval times, that's most. I believe that's where we first had the personification of death as
Yeah, they blamed the wizards. They blamed everything on anything that he does. too with herbs and all that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a witch. We're gonna kill you.
Even though, and I have gone to Salem, there is actually a list of do's and don'ts for witches.
Yeah.
For example, witches do not worship Satan. None of their magic. They do
Nah.
worship a god and goddess, but there is no
Yeah.
equivalent to Satan in the witch religion.
Same with a necromancer. Yes, we can raise the dead from the ground, but don't mean we're evil. We just do it for the heck of it.
Also, it's kind of cheap labor to ask the dead for help.
What will you expect?
I mean, it makes sense. Anyways, so yes, the first personification of death was during the Middle Ages, during most likely like the Black Plague and the Red Death and all that.
Yeah.
And funny thing about the Reaper scythe, actual size, they are actually the blade is actually angled, like it's not a straight blade. Cause
Farmers use them.
yeah, like actual sides are angled at a point because it's used to kind of cut grass
Or wheat.
or wheat. Yeah, I've seen a video of someone cutting grass with a scythe, and they said it was actually faster than like a ride-on mower.
It actually is. And also comes in handy in cutting people's head off. I mean, you did hear that.
Remember, we're not here to make fun of death in any way. It's just we're kind of looking at the history of death in media and how the human mind kind of
Well, they
interprets
brought the
it.
Grim Reaper for Halloween, too.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nice Halloween conversation because let's face it, a lot of people dress up as the Grim Reaper when it's like, oh, I don't have a costume. What do I do? Oh, I got this black robe. Just put it on.
And hopefully you cover your face.
Well, that's another thing that I find interesting is that sometimes in horror movies and media, especially the Twilight Zone, I watch a lot of that. Sometimes the Grim
Don't
Reaper.
remind me of that.
I'm sorry.
Don't remind me of that. It pops on now and then.
Well, I actually watch it on Netflix, but one of the first episodes of the Twilight Zone I ever watched, it it focused on, I think it was this toy maker, and he actually gets visited by Death, and Death actually doesn't look at like the traditional way. He's not a skeleton. He doesn't wear a black robe. It's just a guy in a suit.
There's also another one, if you really look at it. Death is also the god's right hand.
Mm-hmm.
So really, there's no physical form.
Right. I feel like Death can really look like anything. It's just that we associate death with like bones and skeletons because it's like the last stage of decomposition. It just scares us because we know it's inevitable. We know we can't escape it. It's just that
And again, some people can't shape death.
right.
How? I do not know.
Well, sometimes I think it mostly revolves around luck and timing. Like
Oh, you got me on one thing. Even on Harry Potter, if you remember right, they talked about death.
mm, yeah, the death curse.
How they got away from him. One of them was smart enough to ask for the
Oh,
cloak.
right, the invisible cloak and everything. Yeah, I haven't watched Harry Potter in a long time. It just never caught my interest as much as everybody else did.
Well, that's how Nightstrom came up with me.
I see.
Wait, I got myself back. Wolfclaw came up with me. Sorry, that one was confusing myself.
Some of us just woke up from a nap.
And some of us have undeads annoying ya.
But going back to the Twilight Zone, whenever they showed death on screen, it was always just someone in a suit. And one episode actually focused on a woman trying to escape death. She was very paranoid and she would never leave her home. So she, at one point, a man arrives outside her house. She brings him in and she tells him how she encountered death on a bus. What had happened is that she had seen him sort of, I think it was just like take this old woman's hand, and then after a while she realized, oh my gosh, this woman is dead. So
Don't
she's
ever invite strangers into your house.
it was sad though, but here's the thing that I liked about it is that once she realized that the man that was in her house was Death, he was very calm and comforting about what he was going to do. Like the moment that she accepted her fate and took his hand, nothing happened. He's like, "You see? Nothing bad happened. There was not going to be no explosion, no nothing. It's just very painless and just very easy." And that's something I like about some interpretations of death is that death can be scary, yes, but he, when he comes for you, he can be very comforting, and that's something I try to incorporate with my character, Tormeny. She is the goddess of death in my world, and depending on what kind of person you are, she can either be the sweetest thing ever or she can just be a nightmare.
No, I haven't actually met her yet.
I'll introduce you at some point.
Thank you.
I also made my version of Death a mother figure. Like, she has kids.
Oh, you mean Exo and Thea?
Yes, Exo and Skia, those are her kids. 1 second. Remember to stay hydrated, folks. That's one way to avoid death is just stay hydrated.
Pretty much.
But there was one version of death that I really, really enjoy is the personification of death from Discworld, like the one that you see on screen.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about on Soul Eater.
So, that's another good one too.
He is a headache.
The flippin' Reaper chop. Anyways, back to
But he
Discworld.
can handle Excalibur very well.
So Discworld, I highly recommend you read this series of books. Not in order. Oh my gosh, there is like no order when it comes to it. But there are books that center around Death as a character. In fact, I have all of them. First one of the series is Mort, where Death decides to take on an apprentice. Yeah, it ends up not going well after a while. Also, it has a grand entrance of Death. Like when the main character Mort sees him, it's like stroking midnight on the clock, and it's like very cold in the air, and he hears Death's horse, and Death disembarks on his horse. He walks up to Mort and then slips on a pile of ice. I find that hilarious. It's like, oh, it's this grand entrance, it's the big bad Death, and then he just slips. It's like, wow. I mean, I get it. He's
too much on that one.
I feel like it's because he doesn't wear shoes. So
yeah, good point.
So I don't know what kind of grip.
It would have a sticky situation.
So yeah, I don't know what the situation of grip is on Bone, but it's probably not that good.
No, not really.
And in the Discworld series, it turns out that Death actually has a family. Adopted, obviously.
Yeah, his daughter's... Never mind.
Yeah, his daughter is like, ugh. I didn't like her.
Well, if you ever want to see someone rage, I did rage pretty good on that one.
One thing I haven't gotten to this with you guys, but later on in the Discworld series, it turns out that Death also has a granddaughter.
Okay.
But here's the thing, despite the fact that she is kind of related to Death, she doesn't believe that he is her grandfather. Because she was raised to think of logical reasons for things. So she's just standing there like, there's no possible way that I'm related to Death, even though I rode his horse and I can do the voice and everything. It's just, really? There is so many signs pointing to the fact that you are related to him.
At your fate.
It's just, ugh. Take a hint, lady. And another thing that I find interesting is that in the Discworld series, there is a point where Death actually has to take the role of Santa Claus, or at least Discworld's version of Santa Claus.
It sounds like Nightmare Before Halloween or Christmas. You know what I mean.
Nightmare Before Christmas. It is kinda, but at the same time, Death is doing this because the real version of Santa can't be found, and he's like, someone's still gotta do this job, I might as well do it myself.
Well, they are about the same age.
True.
Though, Death could be a little older.
But that's another thing that I find interesting about Death in the Discworld is that he's actually fascinated by humankind.
Good point.
Like, he's fascinated as to why they do certain things, like, why do they sleep at certain points? Why do they consider time to be this precious thing? And he kind of gets a taste of that in the second book focused on him called Reaper Man, where he actually gets fired from his job.
How did that? I don't think I want to know how he got fired.
Apparently he ended up getting too much emotion and sentience, and the gods were like, yeah, no.
It explains a lot.
So throughout the whole book, you're focusing on Death, quote unquote, spending the rest of his time, but you're also focusing on this wizard who was supposed to die but didn't. So it's pretty much the plot of Discworld 2. It's like, Death's not doing his job, what do we do now?
Well, I think he's still after me, but anyways.
One thing that I found interesting about it is that he still holds some of his morals from when he was Death. Like, someone's destined to die, well, I shouldn't interfere. But then someone's like, what are you doing? What do you mean you can't interfere? There's someone in danger in there. He eventually kind of caves and saves a little girl. It's really wholesome. I highly recommend you read it.
It sounds like what I do for the kids that are lost their parents or something.
Also, it turns out in the Discworld, when Death loses his job, apparently pieces of him start to scatter, and then there becomes a death for pretty much everything. Like,
well, that's one way to start the plague.
Well, yeah, and like at one point, this character ends up staying. This character is the death of rats. Don't know why he became. I don't know why he didn't become part of Death after he got his job back, but he's just like Death is like, oh, okay, yeah, you can stay existing.
Same plague.
Yeah. I think we lost him, folks. Hello?
Anyways, Death is a lot of things.
There you are.
Even on the game Diablo.
Death
is a jack.
That was another thing I wanted to talk about. Like, Death in video games is like, there are so many ways that you can personify Death, and like, one personification of Death that stuck out to me and kind of gave me a kind of character quirk for Tormeny was Greg the Grim Reaper from Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Well, death is bad for a date, but anyways.
Like, Greg was hilarious to me for the fact that he he just takes his job, but there are certain things that he just dislikes about it. For example, he doesn't like how certain animals get loopholes in death, like cats. He doesn't like cats because of the 9 lives thing.
Like I said, Diablo, that Grim Reaper, he was just being, well, a dick.
And there was oh, I'm trying to think.
All he wanted to do is raise Diablo.
That's something like that's something I kind of wanted to talk about. Does Death have a kind of quota in certain things? Like, does he have to kill a certain, well, not kill, but collect a certain amount of people before a certain time?
Before he could summon Diablo.
Like, just in any kind of media, like they did touch upon that in the movie Ghost Ship, where
Well, for a necromancer, for my job, pretty much to raise the dead, I have to sacrifice souls to the Grim Reaper to get the bodies from the ground.
see, that was something that I also glanced over a bit when I was making Tormeny, was that does she need to have a quota? Is there something that she can do in case the afterlife gets too crowded? Like, is reincarnation a thing? Which it is. Like, I
Yeah.
came up with this idea that if you were a good person in life and you were comfortable with it, you could spend time in the afterlife, and then after a while you could decide to gain a new life. And it's also a kind of rehabilitation, because if you were an absolute monster in life, you'd have to stay in the afterlife to atone for your sins, and then
Or worse,
right. And
you
then
get you get a chance to work with a necromancer who makes your life hell.
right. So that was something I thought about. It's like, well, what about morality? Because most of the time in stories, death doesn't care what kind of person you are. It's just, if it's your time, it's your time. An example of that would be in a fairy tale. I actually found out about this fairy tale through American McGee's Grimm. It's a story called Godfather Death. What it is that a family is about to have their 13th child, and they can't take care of him, so they decide, oh, let's just give him a godfather. But here's where it gets kind of weird. His first choice is
Yeah.
actually God, and he says no. Like, what? You're saying no to God. And like
Nope.
his argument is that, oh, you favor those who are wealthy, and you don't even care about those who are poor, so I'm not gonna have you as my child's godfather. And I mean,
When I looked into the necromancers, they actually say the same thing. But it's like this: why do I care? I don't care for the rich or the peasants. They're all equal in my eyes.
right, and that's exactly why he picks death ultimately. Like, he says no to God first, then no to Satan. And I mean, saying no to Satan is reasonable. Saying no
And,
to God is kind of strange, but
though technically on that one, if you say no to him, well, you're screwed.
but ultimately he goes with death as his child's godfather because death sees everyone equally. Like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if you're wealthy or you're at the very bottom of the barrel in social status. But what ends up happening is that he raises his god, like Death raises his godson and decides, "Hey, you're going to be a doctor." And the kid's like, "But I have no training." And he's like, and Death's like, "No, no, no, don't worry about it. I know an herb." And Death comes up with a system where if he stands at a person's head, it means they're going to live, because there's a plague that is about to wreak throughout the village or kingdom, whatever. So if he stands at the person's head, they live, but if he stands at their feet, then he has to take them. Godson doesn't listen to this when he comes to the princess and the king of this country.
Yeah.
Death is not happy about it.
Nope.
So what death
And
does,
again, when is death ever happy?
right? It's got to
He
be a
always
very depressing
smiles, so I
job.
mean he's happy.
Like collecting souls of the dead, it has to be one of the most depressing jobs in the cosmic plane. And I also go over that as well. Like part of what Tormeny has to do. Well, for one, she actually has a following of other Reapers because considering that people die almost every 8 seconds, at least in our world, it's a little too much for one person to do.
Yep.
So you need
Death has
help.
reapers everywhere, but no one knows where.
And that's how I feel like that's how the universe works itself. It's like there is I'm gonna get so much hate for this, but there is no like one God, there is no one death. It's like and if you think about it, it makes sense because where depending on where you go, the personification of death can be very different.
Like in the Bible, when they did the Egypts, the
Yes,
plague.
the 10 plagues. What the final plague, the death of the firstborn, I
That
believe
was God's right hand.
right.
But one problem, if you really look at it, it was a skeleton hand.
Right. So and like there's always like ancient Greece and ancient Rome, they had Hades or Pluto, depending on who you asked.
Or if you go to Egypt, you have Anubis.
Right, like every culture had their own personification of the embodiment of death. And I feel like that's how it always has been in the universe. Because, I mean, there's a lot of people in this world right now. Despite what's going on, there is still a lot of people in this world. It's going to be too much of a task to keep track of all of them, like just one person to keep track of everyone. So maybe God has a little bit of help in different parts of the world.
Well, here's a little deal I found out on Diablo.
Yeah,
All the angels are archangels, and they do more than what God does.
right.
You have the archangel of justice.
And that's how I believe Satan came to be. He was actually among one of God's council, but he
And then on the main one that I was talking about, death, is called the archangel of death.
right.
Then you have the archangel of, I'm trying to remember. He's the top one. He's pretty much like God's ranks.
I feel like when it comes
Honor.
to when it comes to certain things, there is a sort of rank system. Like you have God at the very top, and then just under him is like the archangel of death or something.
All technically it would be all of the archangels.
Right. It'd be the archangels and the angels.
And then it's like Satan. It's like the devil. He has his.
Right. He has his various demons. Oh my
And
gosh, things are
technically
so
the
loud in my
Diablo,
house.
the devil is Diablo.
Right. Or
And
Lucifer.
then he has three brothers.
Right. Like people forget about that sometimes is that Lucifer, the devil, actually came from God's court. Like, think
And
about
that's why
that.
the angels don't have any trust for him.
But think about that for a second. The embodiment of evil came from God. So, technically, everything that the devil has done, it came from God first.
Yeah. Because God was his brother.
Exactly.
Then when Lucifer got kicked out, him and his other two brothers got thrown out with him.
Right, because God didn't like what they were saying.
Yep. But here's a little funny deal on
God was ba-
Diablo.
God was basically being a spoiled brat. I am gonna
Yeah.
get so slammed for this.
Well, it's like on Diablo. Diablo and his two brothers got kicked out of hell by the other demons.
Right,
So they had to roam the world.
exactly.
But after a while, the two brothers got sealed up into mortals that sacrificed their bodies to obtain them, to make them not be able to roam. One tried with Diablo, but Diablo broke free and took over that person's thought.
I see. One thing,
So
oh,
the
go ahead.
archangels have their hands full.
I see. I mean, we know who has his hands full the most right now. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to Discworld for a second because one thing I want to note is that, in the Discworld series, the four horsemen of the apocalypse are a thing there. Of course, death is one of them. And my God, he is such a gentle soul with his horse. And first of all, for those who are going to be listening in the future a second, I want to hear your comment below. What do you think Death's horse would be named? I'm gonna give you like a few minutes to think that over. Type it in the comments, and then I'll tell it.
I have one in my head already.
Oh, what is it?
Nightmare.
Oh yeah, Nightmare. It would especially make more sense if it was like an actual mare, like a female horse.
Well, no one knows if Death's horse is a male or female. Think on it. It's already dead.
That's actually interesting because in the Discworld series, it's actually a horse. It's like it's not skeletal. It's not made of fire or mist or anything. It's a living, breathing horse. And its name is Binky.
Where's Brain?
No, not Pinky. Binky with a B.
I had to say it though.
Oh my gosh. 1 second. Water time. No, not in the mic.
Hold on.
I gotta refill this, man. Anyways.
Came back. I had to get me some tea.
Oh, what kind?
Raspberry.
Ooh.
White tea raspberry.
Oh, hello. We actually have someone in the chat.
We do?
Nordic word for death. Oh, that's interesting. Captain Thorn 94. That is very interesting.
What did you say?
I have no idea how to pronounce it, but it's the Nordic word for death. Hold on, I'm gonna put that through Google Translate.
Hello, person.
Translate. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Nordic. Hold on, let me just copy and paste that word.
It probably work best.
It won't let me. I'll just type it in. Thanks for joining us, by the way. It really matters to me. Oh my gosh, show me the flipping chat.
I'm trying to figure out who's talking. I was on YouTube, so.
Figured I'd stop by. You always say hello in my streams. I wanted to return the favor. It's in Old Norse, so I bet. Yeah, I am just Googling it. I wish there was a button for me to listen to it. Come on. Stop making this more difficult than it has to be.
I see $2, but I have a little issue. Twitch still hates me.
Does it?
Do you though?
I don't see anyone's
Oh,
name. I
okay. I'm gonna go with that anyways. Yeah, that's actually interesting. And while we're talking about like there are a lot of superstitions that revolve around death, like American, Canadian, like 13 is a very unlucky number. In Japan, however, the pronunciation for the word death is shi. And it's also the same pronunciation for the letter 4. So in Japan, you will rarely see floors, like hotel or hospital rooms with the number 4 because that is considered a death number.
Actually, people found out if you have four people dying in room 4 at 4 o'clock, 4 people dying.
Hold on. Sorry. Almost had the audio repeat itself. Oopsies. I am professional.
No, we're not. Honestly, we're not.
No. No, we are not. No, I was very professional because I'm gonna give everybody a little sneak peek on this. Oh, it's like Shinigami is in. Oh, okay. I gotcha. Anyways, I have a little announcement. It's like a half hour into this, but my sister and I had finally recorded for her podcast. And we talk about the subject of Return to Oz. Very messed up movie, but I'd highly recommend it because it's just very interesting to watch. It's like a piece of art. And she and I talk about the various comparisons between Return to Oz and the book sources that it came from, because it's actually Return to Oz was based off of 2 books in the Oz series. So, a little plug in for my sister's podcast, Q to Q. It's on Spotify if you ever want to check it out. And if you want to check out Return to Oz, I highly recommend you watch it on Disney Plus if you have it. I highly suggest you watch that first so you get a little bit of a context, because we talk as if you've already seen it, but yeah, I try to make it a point to give context, but oh, you have seen it. Oh, that's good. But yeah, it is an interesting film, and like when you compare it to the source books, it actually makes a lot more sense if you've read the books and then seen this movie. I mean, one thing that we discussed is how much darker the original source material is to the movies that were made from it. Anyways, back to death. One version of death that kind of terrified me was the sort of entity of death in the Final Destination series. Because that was an example of the death that I think everybody is used to. He's like merciless, he's scary, he doesn't like to be cheated.
Hello, person.
For my age, I'm a very traveled man mentally. I feel you on that. Sometimes you just... yeah, it is ridiculous. Like, even the original Wizard of Oz book is really dark. But anyways, Final Destination. Death is very present throughout the whole movie, but you never see the personification of it. Like, I think at one point it's just a random black mist. But death is always, like, I guess, personified as just freak circumstance.
Yeah. Here's a little deal I found out once about death.
Like, that was the thing that I hated about the Final Destination movies, is that the circumstances are believable. Like, you hear about some of these things happening in real life, it's like, oh my god, why am I even going outside?
But die inside. Sorry, what's the point?
Hey! Siri. Siri's been listening the whole time. Stop it. talking about dark things and just gets scared by a mobile app.
Hey, wait, that's using my job.
Yeah, I've never seen this movie, but it had one of the most incredible personifications of death ever. It was a movie called Cemetery Man, and it's a zombie movie. Ironically enough, what it is that
With those zombies.
so what's happening in this movie is that the dead are coming back from the grave. No duh.
I didn't do it, I swear.
Oh, I personally believe death is a very misunderstood entity. His job is to convey lost souls to the afterlife, to lay them to peace. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it's like that's what it is mostly in my opinion. Like
I swear.
you're coming to the end of your life, you're scared, you don't know what's going to happen next, and here is an entity who is giving you all the answers for like what's going to happen now, what's going to happen to your family, like are you going to be at peace, everything like that.
Not like me, my job is to have the dead talk to their family before they go on.
Anyways, back to Cemetery Man. So what it is that this guy is constantly trying to keep the dead from rising, and one day, all of a sudden, the Grim Reaper just comes out of nowhere and says, "Hey, I got a solution to your problem. Kill the living." It's like, what? I could get sent to jail for that, Mr. Death. I don't care, just do it. Just shoot him in the head, it'll keep him from coming back. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, so, counter argument.
Cut their head off.
Well, counter argument. Why don't I just take the body after the funeral, shoot them in the head there, and then bury them? Wouldn't that work just as well?
Nope.
Like that's something I find interesting in certain movies is like when you're trying to cheat death, it always turns out horribly wrong. Like Reanimator, Lazarus. Like it's always like a cautionary tale when it comes to stories about trying to raise the dead back.
Yeah. You know, we, the necromancers, have been misjudged too. Since you could say we raise the dead, but it's not to harm anyone unless they harm us first.
One thing I find interesting, and this is another Disney movie I'm going to be talking about. I feel would this count as a personification of death? Cause I keep going back in my mind to the last scene of the Black Cauldron after flippin' Gurgi. I hated that character so much. I flippin' hated Gurgi. But Gurgi sacrifices himself. Huh?
It's like Lord of the Rings. I don't like the dang. What was his name? I forget that dang.
Gollum?
Yeah. What was his name? I had it in my head. Now I lost it. But death is also in there too.
But anyways, after Gurgi sacrifices himself to the cauldron, the Horn King, absolutely pissed, decides to try to give the main character to the cauldron to sort of satisfy its hunger for bloodlust. And what ends up happening is that the Horn King actually gets caught in the cauldron's sort of vacuum of death. And just, it's really horrifying, and I'm surprised Disney actually did this. What happens is that he's trying to keep himself from going into the cauldron, but as he's resisting, his flesh comes off. Like, what? Disney, what the heck? What's going on in the background there?
Like I was saying though, on the Lord of the Rings, if you really look at it, death is everywhere. It's there.
Were you watching TV or something in the background? What was that?
Yeah, TV's on. Sorry.
Again, we're professional.
Well, Red likes his TV. For some reason, he's into Happy Days.
That's not a bad show.
Nah, not really. Now he starts talking like Fonzie, I'm gonna wonder about him.
But yeah, so those are my thoughts on like the various personifications of death in media. I kind of like it more when they show Death as a sort of sympathetic character. Like sometimes he doesn't want to do his job. It's very depressing. People refuse. People try to run him, and he's just trying to help them. And
Like on Soul Eater, if you were to look at him on there,
right.
he was too laid back. He didn't really want to do his job.
And there's also Death in the Discworld. There is a scene in the book Mort where he suddenly realizes something's wrong and then ends up finding, and apologies if you're an animal lover, he finds a sack of drowned kittens, and he talks about how horrible some humans are, that they will just abandon these precious forms of life. And
Speaking of those kittens, can I kill Death, please? I can't get rid of them.
But it was a very sweet scene where Death is he's playing with the spirit of the kittens for a while. Like he's just trying to keep them happy and give them a warm place to stay in. In fact, him interacting with cats is a recurring thing in Mort, which I find very adorable.
Yeah, he found a warm place for him. My castle.
What's wrong with
Next
little
time,
kitten?
someone give me a heads up.
What, are you allergic or something?
No. I have ghost mice.
I apologize if you just heard a no. My mom's watching a football game right now. Yay, Sundays.
Kid, the Sunday is where you can relax and play games.
Right. And I mean,
Or,
I am going to be playing a game later, but it's probably not going to be Halloween themed. It's just going to be a whatever kind of game. Hence why I'm not streaming it right now. I just wanted to talk for a while. Like, that's something I like about Twitch, is that you don't necessarily have to be playing a video game to live stream. You can just be talking to other people.
yeah. Especially if you're across the states or the world.
Exactly. And also, there's no language barrier. But anyways, I think I'm actually gonna wrap this up for now. So tomorrow, I will be streaming Graveyard Keeper. Speaking of death.
We're gonna have a bone of a time.
Really? Anyways, but yes, I'm gonna be playing Graveyard Keeper tomorrow. I hope to see a few people there, including you. I know you're gonna be there because every time I look at my chat, there's always a pun.
Hey, that was right, not me.
But yeah, thank you everybody for listening and listening in the future.